Can a category as technologically advanced as F1 fail before it starts? What is really happening with the 2026 cars in Barcelona? The lights have not gone out yet, the cars have not even left the garage, but chaos has already set in the paddock. Instead of expectation, what dominates is a collective anxiety. The year 2026 was to mark a before and after in the history of Formula One. A total redesign of the technical rules, a new generation of lighter, more sustainable and efficient cars, and a completely redefined power unit. On paper, the objective was clear. Bring racing closer to a greener future without losing even a bit of the essence of extreme performance. In practice, what is happening behind closed doors is a perfect storm of technical delays, regulatory loopholes, and improvised decisions. The first alarm signals began to sound weeks before the start of the tests in Barcelona. Several insiders leaked that at least 3 teams were facing significant delays in the delivery and integration of key chassis parts. We are not talking about minor adjustments. These are problems in the union of essential structural elements such as the monocoque with the cooling system of the hybrid powertrain. The main reason is in the new design of the 2026 engines, which, due to regulations, must be mechanically simpler but much more thermally demanding. This has forced a total reconfiguration of the airflow, radiator distribution, and aerodynamic package. All this while reducing the size of the fuel tank and trying to maintain stable downforce. This scenario has caused a technical bottleneck. Virtual simulations are no longer sufficient, and teams urgently need physical tests. But the problem is that they haven't even been able to start the cars. The test benches are saturated, some power units have not yet been validated under real conditions, and it is rumored that one of the youngest teams is considering not attending the first days of testing due to the impossibility of completing their car on time. Behind the scenes, engineers call it a ticking time bomb. The data that has come to light is simply unsustainable. A liter of certified biofuel can cost between 250 and 300 euros. To measure it, filling the tank of a car for a single test round can cost more than 13,000 euros. Now, in a test like the one in Barcelona, where hundreds of laps are planned per team over several days, the expense on non-approved fuel could easily exceed 250,000 euros per team. This directly hits the current budget ceiling of $135 million in the category. And the worst thing, it's just the beginning. The fragility of the system has forced teams to take extreme management measures. Sterile supply lines, specialized personnel only for fuel handling, duplicate transfer and storage protocols, and even mobile purification stations. The bottles are being transported in almost clinical conditions. Human error can cost tens of thousands of euros in seconds, in addition to invalid simulation and test data. And if that were not enough, a silent bomb explodes. The FIA, knowing that several suppliers such as Aramco or Shell would not be able to certify the complete neutrality of their fuels in time, has authorized a hidden exception. During the Barcelona tests, the use of mixtures that are not completely approved will be allowed. This means that there will be teams testing with fully certified fuels and others with provisional compounds, not identical in behavior or molecular purity. The impact of this decision is devastating from a comparative point of view. How are teams supposed to evaluate their times, power levels, thermal consumption, or energy efficiency if each car literally runs on a different fuel? It's not just a difference in brand or supplier. We are talking about chemically disparate mixtures, with different ignition profiles, viscosity, and energy density. Some teams are betting on fuels derived from biomass, such as Ferrari and Shell, which have previous experience in IndyCar. Others, such as Mercedes or Red Bull, are experimenting with synthetic e-fuels, which offer thermal advantages but complicate combustion stability. The direct consequence is a complete distortion of the data obtained on the track. The same car could give different results depending on the type of fuel it uses. And if we add that there will be no significant freedom of evolution in the engine maps once homologated, any advantage obtained in this phase, even if minimal, could be consolidated into an advantage of up to 20 to 30 horsepower during the season. In modern F1, this is practically a championship sentence. Furthermore, biofuel poses an engineering dilemma. Having a lower energy density than traditional fossil fuels, teams must decide whether to run with more fuel adding weight to the car or whether to sacrifice power to maintain efficiency. Each choice has a strategic cost. And in a championship where tenths of a second make the difference between a podium and a retirement, these types of dilemmas can destroy entire seasons. Meanwhile, pilots face a completely new learning scenario. The biofuel alters the way in which engine torque is delivered, modifies the response to the accelerator, and affects braking stability due to changes in combustion. Each lap becomes an experiment, each corner entry an unknown. And track engineers are reporting an increase in irregular detonation under high-load conditions, a phenomenon that could compromise the life of power units if not addressed immediately. Officially, the FIA has established that 2026 engines must reduce their maximum compression ratio from 18:1 to 16:1. This measure, according to the agency, has the objective of reducing the absolute performance of the engines to balance the grid, promote thermal efficiency, and attract new manufacturers. But what seemed like a clear regulation on paper has opened a technical gap that Mercedes and Red Bull, according to multiple leaks, would be exploiting with surgical precision. The trick, according to sources within the paddock, is not in violating the regulations, but in interpreting them in an innovative way. The corresponding article of the regulation specifies that the compression ratio will be measured in static conditions, at room temperature. This is where the cleverness of the engineering departments at Mercedes high-performance powertrains and Red Bull powertrains comes in. Taking advantage of the thermal expansion of materials such as titanium alloys and steel treated with nanotechnology, these teams have designed internal components, especially the connecting rods and piston segments, that expand when heated, dynamically altering the geometry of the engine in real racing conditions. The result, in cold homologation tests, the engine perfectly complies with the 16:1 limit. But once it reaches its usual operating temperature, which exceeds 110 degrees in internal areas of the block, that effective ratio rises in a controlled manner to 17.8 or even 18:1. It's either a brilliant piece of engineering or an act of regulatory manipulation, depending on who you ask. This technique takes advantage of a legal ambiguity. The regulation requires that the car be compliant at all times during a competition, but does not specify how certain dynamic variables such as the compression ratio should be measured under real thermal conditions. The official measurement is carried out on a test bench without combustion, without thermal load. In legal terms, the engine is compliant. In sporting terms, you gain an advantage that, according to estimates, can represent between 10 and 15 additional horsepower. In an era where all cars are limited by the same fuel flow and hybrid restrictions, that's a difference of up to 0.4 seconds per lap. An eternity in Formula One. The scandal has not been long in coming. Ferrari, Honda, and Audi have requested an extraordinary technical meeting with the FIA scheduled just 2 days before the start of testing in Barcelona to demand clarity. Some Ferrari engineers have declared off the record that, if this interpretation were allowed, the integrity of the new regulations would be destroyed from day one. From their perspective, a key parameter such as the compression ratio cannot be allowed to be manipulated by thermal effect, without a review of the regulations. And there is an even more complex dimension. Not all teams have the level of technological resources or the expertise in advanced metallurgy necessary to replicate this innovation. Indeed, if the FIA considers this technique legal, we would be facing a massive distortion of the competitive field that would exclusively benefit the manufacturers that already lead the same ones that should have been contained by these new regulations. Paradoxically, in its attempt to equalize, the regulation could have created the greatest technical imbalance of the hybrid era. The situation has generated a climate of Cold War in the paddock. Some insiders report that Red Bull is even considering patenting part of the design of its internal components to prevent other teams from copying them once their legality is confirmed. Meanwhile, other teams have started a race against time to replicate this principle of thermal expansion, albeit in a more basic version before final homologation. Beyond the technique, what is being disputed here is the soul of the regulations. Should the FIA punish technical creativity if it exploits gray areas? Or should it protect the sporting spirit even if it means limiting innovation? There are no simple answers. But what is clear is that if this loophole is not closed before Melbourne, we could be facing a season marked by irreversible inequalities from the first round. The tests in Barcelona were to be the first glorious chapter of a new era. A symbolic event. The tangible beginning of the Formula One of the future. However, what is glimpsed is a scene closer to a crisis rehearsal than a technological celebration. The premier category of motorsport faces, without having completed a single official lap, the real possibility of having designed a regulation that is too ambitious, disconnected from the logistical, technical, and financial realities that govern even the most advanced organizations in the world. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.